What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck did I just watch? You are listening to What the Fuck Did I Just Watch? You can find us on Facebook and YouTube at WTF Did I Just Watch? Thanks for joining us, and here's our latest episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of What the Fuck Did I Just Watch? And today we are joined by Traci, who earlier you've seen her spouse Joe talk about Dream Team. And of course, John Paul is also always here because I just can't get rid of him. I tried.
I didn't die. Yay, I'm still alive.
I mean, voodoo dolls. I'm mean to him, but he likes the abuse.
Last month I did almost die, but I didn't die, so I'm good now.
So that's why we were on sabbatical. But
yeah,
Traci, after she watched the fun job that her husband did, decided that she really wanted to be on the podcast too, because who doesn't want to hang out with the cool kids, right? And Traci is a cool kid. So Traci also works for the Ohio History Center, which I think makes her one of the most awesome people in the world. And also, we used to pretend to be vampires together. I think you guys still do, though, right?
I do.
Yeah. I don't make it there very often, sadly. But at any rate, Traci's like, what are you guys going to do the menu? I want to do the menu. Can we do the menu? We're like, hell yeah, we could do the menu. So this podcast is going to be about the menu. And I'm going to make Traci do the summary of the menu since it was her pick.
Oh, boy. So if you want to do the quick and dirty definition of what happened during this movie, you could say it's a date gone really wrong. You could say that it is really all about finding enjoyment in one's work. And it's a morality play based around food and violence and finding your life's purpose. I think that's probably the quickest, most concise 7,000-foot view of the menu.
That was excellent.
That was excellent. Yeah. I mean, I was just going to say it's another movie from 2022 that was about eating the rich.
Yep.
Because you couldn't apparently have two of them nominated for an Academy Award. And I think the wrong one got nominated for an Academy Award. This movie should have been nominated for at least Best Screenplay, but it did not. And instead, Triangle of Sadness did. But that's not here nor there because I'm still mad about that.
Not that you have an opinion on it or anything.
I'm still mad about that.
Well, I'll say this. I watched the first 10 minutes of Triangle of Sadness, and I've yet to go finish watching it. Not because it was like horrible. It just was super boring.
It doesn't get any better.
Super boring.
And the ending makes you mad.
Oh, no.
Okay, then. Note to self. However, the menu is completely engaging start to finish, in my opinion, which is fascinating because it takes place over the course of a 4-course meal.
And a little extra, but yeah.
Yeah.
You got to move.
So, and yet the whole time you're like, what is happening? But I love it. I mean, like, it actually, even one of the twists caught me a little off guard for a while too. Like, I didn't pick up that Margot was a paid companion until probably the scene where he said, I'm paying for everything.
Well, and even then, it wasn't until I put that with Ray Fiennes says that you are from the service industry. And at first it was just some douchey guy talking about how he paid for his girlfriend's expensive fancy dinner. But then I'm like, and he's like, you're one of us. And I'm like, he can tell she worked in like a fast food restaurant or something. But yeah, then you start putting things together. You're like, I see.
Which makes you rethink completely the intro scene, like
Absolutely.
The dialogue that like you didn't catch it, but afterwards you're like, oh, blatantly obvious.
Well, and one of the things, and just right out of the beginning, that really intrigued me is that despite the fact that every single person looked at her as if she should not be there, but she was just effortlessly like, I'm supposed to be here. She's used to playing roles. And you'll find more about that, later in the film. But everyone, especially is it Elsa, she's like, oh, you're not the girl that was supposed to be here. And everything from that moment seems a little weird. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, he had a bad breakup.
See, that's kind of what got me like right away about her character, because it's like, you're not supposed to be here, because they knew, the chefs and everything had everything planned out. the way it was supposed to. So when they threw a monkey wrench into the whole
A
scheme of things,
substitution, if you will.
yes,
A
exactly, the substitution. That's perfect.
Yes.
The substitution. It was just like they deliberately were either in some cases pissed or too nice. You know, like let's accommodate in a weird kind of way.
And at
And that's what
first,
got me.
at first, to me, it was like, oh, she's not of their social class. And that's what I thought initially going in. Like, she's not supposed to be here because she's not wealthy. And so I thought initially they were like, oh, you're not good enough to be here. You don't know enough about food. Obviously, that wasn't the case. And we find that out later. But initially, I thought it was about like her class, her, her wealth or lack thereof. But from that very first moment, like they were all very accommodating, but you knew something was very wrong.
Yeah. Well, you know what else I thought was interesting? So in retrospect, and this probably took me to about my third watch, it's kind of a parallel theme going on between Margot and Chef Slowick, sorry. That they're both were really great at their job. And then, but in this moment, they're really not good at their job. And they both get back to what they're good at the end. Because when you watch Margot interact with Tyler, she's not being very good at playing the role. She's arguing with him about it. She even fights about, smoking the cigarette at first, and I'm not going to give rules for what a sex worker is supposed to do, but you would think somebody who's paid to be a companion on a date would be, oh, of course I'll put out the cigarette, or, fake enthusiasm, because you're being paid for that service. Now, when she claps back at him, when he snaps at her and she's like, you can't treat me like that, she's absolutely right. It doesn't matter that you're paid or not. You know what I mean? You don't treat people like dogs. But I mean, but in the role that she was supposed to be playing as the paid companion, she was not really picking up on what the client wanted so much, in my opinion. She would have moments, where she was supposed to be playing the cool girl that he finally got to go out with. But then,
But that's what saved her life.
Well, because in the end, she knew what the chef wanted.
Yep.
She knew what the chef needed. And that was the whole, give me that cheeseburger, which, by the way, every time I watch the movie, I am so desperate want of a really good cheeseburger. It's not
a good cheeseburger.
Yeah. I crave it so bad I start drooling.
So let me ask you this to before we move on. Do you guys feel that she was a paid companion or a paid sex worker?
She is clearly a sex worker, but it's an escort moment or everything. So
right.
When you hit certain echelons, they don't always do it for sex. So sometimes it's just for the date. So like he might have hired her literally just to be on date. I mean, of course, they were all going to die.
That's kind of what I got.
But that was part of her role. So that I do believe it sometimes as an escort, she was a sex worker. Sometimes she was a date. Sometimes she was, an escort to a party. It's just going to matter what they wanted.
And that's why I asked this question, because we have the other guests that knew her.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, the other guests that knew her, but it knew her as that other role.
And
that's why I was getting at.
It was heavily implied, though, that he wanted her to go by a certain title.
Exactly.
And wanted to be really sketchy. That's
right.
Not
this isn't Pretty Woman.
Right.
That's what I thought. Like, what was very interesting about, her role in being the companion as opposed to the sex worker or whatever, because it was very interesting the way she interacted with everybody, in terms of the way she walked around in the flow of even the guests and the way she carried herself. She had such a great self-confidence.
This is an odd thing that I noticed, but did anybody else notice that she's the only one that ever went to the restroom? No one left their table until they were told to leave their tables. Like, no one ever got up to move. And she was just comfortable enough. She's like, I'm upset. I'm going to get up and walk away. When all of these people were so used to being like, in this moment, you're in this space. This is your we don't go to the restroom, but like,
we don't make scenes. We don't.
Right. I think, like I said, it goes back to her self-confidence of who she was as a person. I mean, again, I've seen this movie now like 10 times, and I saw it twice in the theater because I absolutely love this movie. Like I said, why it wasn't nominated for any kind of award, the only thing I could think of is it was marketed wrong, because if you look at the trailer to this movie is selling you a horror movie. This isn't necessarily a horror movie in the sense of, hey, we're gonna go around and like hunt you down, or kind of like what the trailer sells you of these people are coming after you. It wasn't really that. There's a lot more. There's a lot layers, like meals. I mean, that's what I loved about it. I mean, I personally love to cook. I'm not the best cook in the world, but I love to try things, and I just love just the different layers and the different courses that meant different things, and that's just what blew my mind about this movie. And I'm like, how is this not nominated for anything?
Well, I'll say this. I did not care for the movie the first watch. I did not like it. I know that's kind of a hot take. But I also don't like, generally speaking, I don't like grimdark, kind of like the dark satire. I'm not a fan of like things like Black Mirror, just because it's just so dark. And let me tell you, there's plenty of that out there. So I had to kind of sleep on it, and watch it again and then watch it again. But I did not care for initially what was largely satirical in nature. I thought initially that some of the reactions of the guests were like wooden, but that's kind of part of the story. And so it actually took me, I had to warm up to it a little. And I wonder if that, in addition to it being marketed as a horror film, kind of struck a nerve in the wrong way for some audiences.
I mean, I kind of agree with you, but like the reviews were glowing. That's what blew my mind. Like, I read like, I would say 3 actual negative reviews, and then the rest were pretty much positive. When I recommended this to my in-laws, both of them were like, we were kind of like you, a little off-putting, because they were just like, it's kind of mean-spirited. And then when we talked about it, my wife and us talked to them about it, they're like, okay, we'll watch it again. We'll watch it again. And they did. And then they started being like, there's a lot more to this really than what there is. And especially like you said, it kind of does have that Black Mirror kind of like dark take, mean-spirited. But again, it's supposed to, again, and the way they did it was just so, I don't know, there was just something like, I thought it was great. All the just different actors, all the different takes. I mean, John Leguizamo, who I love in pretty much everything he does.
Oh God, he's amazing.
He is so great in this role, being a douchey asshole actor, which in an interview that I saw, he said he modeled it after Steven Seagal, which I think is hilarious. After interactions with Steven Seagal. So I'm like, wow, for him to actually just put that out there, good on him. But the fact that like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can totally see it. I can totally see what he's saying in this. And just the way his character is just, you just want to just like smack him in the face many times.
The same with the male protagonist whose name is currently escaping me right now.
Tyler?
Is that his
Nicholas
name? Tyler?
Holt?
Oh, geez.
Nicholas Holt.
The character's name is Tyler. His name's Nicholas Holt.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I love him as an actor. I love him. And I wanted to punch him in the face real bad.
Like, so a couple thoughts. Sorry to interrupt. So like back to both of your points about like how they marketed it. Like I know several people who wouldn't watch this movie because they thought it was cannibalism. And
exactly.
And so like that right there made them go, I'm not even going to give it a chance. And when I told them like, no, it's really not what it is. You'll probably enjoy it. Watch it. And they did, and they would. But a lot of people wouldn't, just because they're like tired of the cannibalism thing. And we had Fresh earlier, like just a whole bunch of movies that like that fun theme of let's just eat people.
Yeah, I'm not down for that.
It's not super fun. There's that, and so like there's a lot of stuff that like really, if you watch it only once, you won't get, and it'll just seem like stupid. And then some of the stuff when you watch it again, like the whole scene where they're walking them to the restaurant after they've toured them the island, and there's 2 goats leading them. Well, they do that for cows that they're taken to slaughter. They have these goats lead them there to keep the animals calm. I mean, it's weird shit you may not know unless you.
No, I agree. They did a lot of play
strange.
Of that.
The hut that the staff lived in kind of made me think of Jim Jones, and
yes,
which made you give this cult feel, which really makes sense because clearly they were kind of a cult.
Yeah. I I think that is what started. So to go back to walking them around the island, after watching it once or twice, I also thought that as the secondary reason for doing that, not only to show them off, is so that later when they get a chance, they know a little bit of the island, and
Fair play.
they're kind of being a little sporting in that way. And we can get to that later, and I don't want to spoiler ahead of time, but that's one of the things that I thought, oh, they're showing them where they are, also showing them they are completely remote. And when they showed them walking into the bunk, literally all the beds, and there are just toilets sitting there, like even less privacy than the army, like
True.
there's and you're like, oh, that's deeply, deeply unsettling. And then
Yeah.
when you start to see them all working, you're like, oh, this is a little more serious than I think they were planning.
But then I also read something that like they based it on a couple different restaurants, but one of them was an exclusive one that's on an island, I think off the Washington state coast. And it closed down recently. And it had a lot of issues. Like as it closed down, there were allegations of like sexual assault. They were like keeping the workers' wages, just a whole bunch
Oh,
of crazy
geez.
shit that just like kind of plays into the fact, the eeriness of the setting in the movie, like
Before we get too far ahead, have either of you worked in restaurants? I mean, I assume everybody
very
has, but
briefly,
okay.
but yes.
I was a busboy and a dishwasher.
Okay.
I was not cut out. I was a line cook and a hostess, but I was not cut out for it. My people skills are nil.
Well, and I think that also is kind of part of what plays into this. If you've ever worked in a restaurant, especially one that works well or was deeply dysfunctional, you kind of see a lot of things. You're like, oh no, those kinds of things happen in kitchens. And especially for people who are trying to make it as like a chef or want to advance their career in like culinary arts, um, they can try and impress someone important, and that desire is what leads in this film specifically people to make some real interesting choices. But like they gave up all their autonomy to live on this island with this chef, to work together as a team. And it one of the things about this movie is it has gotten me talking more than most any movie I have seen in the last 4 or 5 years. There's just so many things that you can talk about in insofar as like the industry of cooking, or any industry where you can give your life over to it. And so like when you see all of them starting to work together, you're like, oh, I can see how there are types of people who will follow someone like this, or who will give up their freedom even to have an opportunity. And that's one of like the deeply unsettling parts of this movie for me. They were willing to
Yeah,
do anything.
because
Well,
name
Elsa,
dropping is key. You have to have that in your
yeah.
resume if you're going to make it. And yeah, sorry, go
Well,
ahead, Elsa.
I'll say Elsa's character alone,
Oh, Hong
the
Chow was
way
amazing.
she follows blindly. Not to mention that actress is phenomenal. She was great in this. She was great in The Whale as well. I mean,
Oh,
she deserves all the accolades she gets as well. Um, but just the way her character was so determined to be like, I'm next in line. I'm going to be the next alpha male out of this group. I'm next in line. I'm next. And just everything that just transpires with her character from start to finish, where at the beginning you're like, who is this girl and why is she such a bitch to everybody? To the end where you're just like, you almost feel a little sad for her
Oh yeah,
because
he completely betrayed her. That's
yeah,
one of the
because
things about the
well,
movie I
and
don't
that's the
get.
thing.
Like,
What
why did Chef do that to her?
exactly? Why did Chef do that to her? Was that a betrayal? Was it something she knew? Wasn't it? I mean, you can kind of look at it as okay, she knew what was happening. She was, I think, the only person really that knew the whole full game plan. And when they pivoted the full game plan, that's when she started to just unravel little by little. And her character,
Staff knew the game plan. Like,
Ye-
no, I'm
yes,
pretty sure
I
the whole
mean,
staff knew it, but
okay,
I agree with you that the pivoting did not work
yeah.
well with her.
And it started the second that she walked up to that bench, that first sign in where they were checking everyone in. And I think in that moment where he betrayed her, it was a test for them both. He was testing Elsa and to see if she trusted him and was loyal, because she didn't have to go out there. He told Margot to go. And so Margot went, and Elsa couldn't handle it. Elsa couldn't handle the fact that he was trusting her to do something that she should have done. And so he tested them both, and technically they both failed, but you know, he was, I think once he started understanding who Margot was, things started changing in his plan. He had planned every single moment. He had invited every single person. And when she showed up, he's like, this was not my plan. And then things started changing for him. In, I don't know if it was a better way or a worse way, but
Well, seeds of doubt are
yeah.
always, interesting things. And I
Mm-hmm.
think definitely the way it was played for him, I mean, that's why I thought it was just kind of interesting because I mean, even if let's say I'm going to jump a little farther ahead. You have that picture of that you have up behind you, Traci. That yeah, a young version of him. We also saw other pictures of him with a family, and that's the only one thing that I thought was interesting that this movie kind of like glazed over because I'm like, he had a family. Where's the family? We knew about the mother, which I thought that was an interesting take as well. But I'm like, where's the family? Like, did you get a divorce? Were you so committed to
Well,
your role as a chef and
That was my
abusive?
assumption, that there was a combination, that he was putting in so many crazy hours as a chef
Yeah,
and abusing his staff, as in Man's Folly course, that the
mm-hmm.
wife and kid were like, okay, we're in the way, let's go.
Well,
yeah, and
it,
and most chefs, I mean, that I know have some kind of substance abuse problem, either alcohol or drugs or something. They've got to keep up that like constant uh adrenaline and flow while everything is moving in motion in a
mm-hmm.
kitchen. All right, a big kitchen like this, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I thought it was interesting. It's like you glazed over, I feel like, a really important aspect of who this character is. And that
Well,
was my only major problem with this movie because I'm like, I I kind of want to know because I'm like, if you planned everything to a letter, well, that's another like oddball thing that would have disrupted your life. How did you
well,
handle that? And this is as equal in terms of, disrupting your plan. How does he deal with it?
I feel like, and this is maybe just my interpretation, but things in the movie start kind of like, you can see things starting to unravel, but it wasn't until the mess where everything shifts. And I think in that moment when he's talking to the chef, whose name I have unfortunately forgotten, um, he kind of mentions that, this is a kind of thing where you have to give up everything. And I think part of the reason he kept saying he's a good chef, he might even be a better chef than me, but he's not ever going to be a great chef. And I think it's because there was maybe a doubt that that guy did not want to give up everything. Maybe he didn't want to sacrifice a family. And like I said, maybe that's just my interpretation. But I felt like if there was any addressing of that family, it kind of was in that little short
Okay. I'll have to
section.
rewatch it again. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's what I love about this movie. There's so many little nuances.
Yeah. He
And
kind of says, are you willing to give up everything for this passion? Um, and like it, I don't see it anywhere else in the movie. But if there was any addressing of Chef Slowick of that sacrifice, it was in that little monologue right before the mess.
I think that's accurate for sure. But here's okay. The one thing that bothered me about the movie, and I don't know if anybody, I've been looking to see if they put it as goofs, if maybe I listened to this movie again and again. So I don't know if it's just me and I'm having a weird auditory hallucination about this shit or nobody else picked up on it. But you noticed, so in the Taco Tuesday course intro, um, he says growing up in or he said as a child in Waterloo, Iowa, right? That's when this happened, where his dad tried to strangle his mom and all that fun stuff, and he stabbed his father with kitchen scissors. But then later on, when they're serving the tea, he says, "Growing up in Bratislava," which is in Slovakia. I mean, I'm sure there could be a Bratislava in the United States, but he doesn't add a state to it. And so I'm like, I mean, it's
I
not
did not
impossible
notice
that he
that.
could have part of a childhood in one area and part of a childhood in another. But I was like, okay, but when did we go from Bratislava to Waterloo, Iowa, or from Waterloo, Iowa to Bratislava? Did anybody else hear this in this movie, or is it just me being nuts?
I don't know. I mean, if I did, I didn't catch it.
I don't think I caught it either, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Now I have
Okay,
to
well,
watch
if
it
you guys
again.
ever watch it again, like
I
just
mean, I will.
Taco
Like I
Tuesday
said,
intro and the tea intro, he'll talk about it.
like
But
I said,
I'm like,
I've watched this movie several times because I just enjoy it that much. And
I,
it
I
just
love anomalies, so I hear anomalies.
it,
No, I love that. I love that because now I got to go back and watch it too.
yeah, and like I said, there's so much like that's why like it's so weird that this movie and I mean I can maybe read the little tea leaves because this was a Fox Searchlight movie initially. Fox
Mhm.
went through the merger of Disney and they, you know, like it or not, moved stuff around and stuff went to streaming, stuff went to theatrical, and stuff was just marketed completely incorrectly in this whole weird merger of things. So I think, when Disney had this movie, they're like, we don't know what to do with it. We have all these famous actors in it. We have Nicholas Hoult, who is on the rise, and again, he sold me as a kid actor from Notting Hill to now, The Great, which is one of my favorite TV shows that he's in, and even the crazy D&D movie. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's his
Renfield.
father. I I have this thing in my head that I really think that he is the reincarnation of Hugh Grant because him
Oh,
and they act so similar. It's crazy. They're like reincarnated for each
I'm
other.
sorry. He will forever be Beast in X-Men. I'm
Well,
sorry.
though that too. There you go. Um, but again, there was just like it was just so marketed, like people said, "Oh, it's about cannibals." I'm like, no, it's not. But I don't want to tell you because it ruins it.
Hmm.
But I'm telling
I don't
you,
think there's a good
go
way
see
to
it.
describe this movie without really.
No,
You can say the things that it's not.
and I finally I got to the point where I said the movie's called The Menu. There it is for you, The Menu. And I said, if you want to partake and taste the menu, watch the movie, and you'll see what I mean.
Mhm.
Because that's the best way to put it. Because it's
ironically,
so,
though,
yeah,
the menu, all the food in it, for the most part, was not edible. It was like that
no,
fake made stuff for like commercials. So the actors were not imbibing any of that food, except for the cheeseburger. So
Are
right.
you
that scene when you
serious?
see them all looking at Anya Taylor Joy with like this envy while she's taking this bite out of the cheeseburger, it's because that was the only person who actually got to eat food
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
like that. And like at the end, everybody was so jealous. I think John Leguizamo ordered cheeseburgers and French fries for everybody.
That's
Yes,
hilarious.
yes.
Because like all the stuff they made looked delicious. It was a 2-star Michelin chef, 3-star, I can't remember now, but she's like one of the only female chefs to get that many stars
Oh wow.
because it's a rather sexist industry. But at any rate, but all the food was just designed so it looked presented well in the movie and was not actually edible. And because of the multiple takes and stuff like that, if you were using real food, it'd be crazy. So they'd have all these delectable looking dishes that they couldn't eat. And then there's Anya Taylor-Joy with this gorgeous looking cheeseburger that we're all drooling over. And she's like, oh. And they're like,
That's another layer of irony, like on top of this whole story, like about consumption of things and being a taker and nothing there was actually edible. That's freaking hilarious.
But yeah, I read that trivia, and then when I was watching the movie and I was watching the other actors watch her eat, I'm like, you can see, like, it gives a whole other extra depth to that envy. But yeah, that was
And
funny.
I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting into, but like one of the things that struck me as like an overarching theme, you know, of course it's about, you know, taking but not really participating.
Sorry,
And
my dog had an opinion.
it's okay. My kids are upstairs like wrestling apparently, I don't know. But like one of the overarching themes, like I went to a couple of schools for musicians and artists and whatever, and I was constantly surrounded by people who were, you know, picking apart movies and picking, you know, like we are right now, and picking apart art and music and whatever. And I always kind of felt like a Margot, like all these people are like participating and there's no bread. Like there's a plate completely full of sauce and he's scooping up the, you know, the olive oil, and there's no bread. Like, and I felt like that a lot, you know, being around people that are very creative who can tell you every single thing that goes into a film or a dance or a piece of music, and kind of picking it apart but not being able to enjoy it. And so like that kind of resonated with me and almost immediately. She's like the everyman, right? And because of that, you see this sort of ridiculousness from her perspective. I've watched a million, you know, baking shows and chef shows and all kinds of things like that. And, you know, they're like, oh, you can smell the goat as, you know, in the dairy or whatever. I frankly could not tell you the difference between goat cheese and a block of orange cheese from Kroger. Like I don't have a refined palate in that way. And so it felt a lot like growing up around lots of creative people. You know, I feel like they're seeing something and experiencing something different than I am. The food that's in front of them is barely food. You're going there paying $12,000, and in theory, up until a certain point, the idea is you're going to leave hungry because it's not food. And I think that's one of the things that really like got me invested in a movie that I didn't think that I was going to like. You know, it's just that do you participate in the events of your life, or do you just want to be in that space, you know? Like so that was kind of like a theme in that film that kind of pulled me in when normally I would not have cared for it.
Well, additionally, I mean, like those are just amazing points, but also Margot was the only one who figured out that they were being mocked by it, you know, like everybody else was making up reasons why this was not, you know, an insult or not a bad thing, you know. Well, you could just taste this better. This is genius. It's brilliant. It's art, you know, like somebody puts a pair of glasses down on the ground or a piece of trash in the art museum and suddenly it's a piece of art as opposed to a discarded wrapper or somebody forgot their glasses, right? So
Mm-hmm.
same thing here, you know, the chef's like, we're not going to give them bread. And in addition, we're going to mock them with a little thing explaining what bread that they're not getting. And we're
Right.
just going to give them like little bits of oil to lick up, you know?
And
And
he's
you know, they all did it. And Margot's like, you're being insulted. And then I sorry, I have to read this. So the table with the three guys that were like the executives or finance guys or whatever,
mm-hmm.
when they
The
asked for
douche
the
table.
bread, yeah, the douche table, and Elsa, the joy on that actress's face that she
Yep.
put through telling them no felt so real. She's like, no. Are you telling us no? Yes, that's correct. I'm telling you no. just just a no inflection, but just you could see joy beaming out of her
And
face. And then when she creepily leans over with that line, what was it?
you will eat
Get
less than you deserve.
Sure.
Oh God.
you will get no, you will eat less than you want, but get more than you deserve, or like you will eat more than you deserve, but get less than you need, or something. It was something like that. But oh, it was a gorgeous
It was
line, and it
creepy
was
as hell. And then she stands back up, puts her smile back on, and goes right back to business. And you're just like, what? And I think in that moment, they started to realize that they were kind of powerless. Like they were some of the richest people. They technically kind of owned this restaurant. And I think in every review I've ever seen of the movie, they call them the finance bros. Like, I don't remember a single one of their names. They just call them the finance bros. But like, these finance bros technically owned the restaurant or worked for the guy that did.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get bread. Like, and they're just like, are you shitting me? And then, they look around and see that no one else is pissed. And they're like, well, I guess I'm going to lick up my sauce. Like, and again, that's when like the complacency starts. When Elsa just kind of sticks it to them, and they're just like, that was not a response I was expecting.
Oh, and the broken emulsion bit too. I love that.
Oh, I thought he was going to make her eat that whole thing.
But it was just so lovely. Which like shouldn't be broken. And then they're like, "Pong, it's been more broken emulsion for you."
It was a huge ass bowl too. Like, that's wild.
And they did it to her twice.
Wild.
Like I think I felt like the 2 times was it was special. Like the one time was just because it was before people realized what was going on. First time he had a broken emulsion put down for her in the supersized bowl. And then like after the mess was later on, I think maybe after Nan's Folly, I think it was that they popped down again. And it was like even more insulting then. Because now she knows she's going to die. And then they're like, oh, by the way, more broken emulsion, since this was what mattered to you.
Right. You want to be critical. Here you go. Here's your last supper.
So I keep actually falling back to the Man's Folly scene because it's one of my favorite ones. But it's also like so like weird and confusing when you think about it. So the whole thing is the sous chef, he basically hit on her. They don't really say how much. She just said like, chef wanted to fuck me and I said he refused his advances. I don't know if they were just trying to keep it at that level or if it was more of an assault type thing.
It seemed like it was a bit more nefarious than her rebuffing his advances.
I agree, but they kind of leave that up to your interpretation. But so she is allowed at this time to stab him in the thigh, which calls back to the Taco Tuesday scene where he talks about how he stabbed his father in the thigh, and then she takes her bloody hand and rubs it across his chest to add insult to injury. And this is funny. So then they tell the male guests, all right, you have a chance to run. We'll give you a 45-second lead and good luck. And, women come in and enjoy this food, which in a way is like, I don't know, like when you think about it, like, so what is the advantage? Like, is the advantage because like you figure the women know better, or because the women are going to try to coerce, like, this other woman and try to escape? But also think about the fact that sous chef, who mentions that he tried to, assault her basically, and then didn't speak to her for 8 months directly or look at her straight in the eye for 8 months. And think it back to the whole cult setting, because she stayed there. And it probably crushed her that he would not look at her or speak to her for 8 months, because she probably internalized it as her fault.
Yeah.
That she had done something wrong. And so she continued to work with him and continued to follow the cult. And apparently the whole dying thing was her concept for the menus. So, it's a lot to think about when you think about like a lot of the programming that happens and cults and to women in general. And
like what kills me. Okay. So our main dude decided he's not even going to try and run. He's like, you too stupid, go. He didn't want to leave. He wanted to be part of it.
He wanted food.
And he was mad that he missed out on a course. Like, this dumbass. So what I think one of the things that upset me is if I recall correctly, not one single man offered to help get a woman out of there. Not one.
I think one of them said, I'll send help, but that was like it.
But no, you're right. Nobody actually did.
But nobody did. Like, they didn't try to take one with or say, hey, can we help them? Or, no.
Yeah. And, this is where things started really messing with my like mental, like, because they could have, any number of them could have started swimming. Like, that'd have been a real hard thing for a person to catch you, as long as you could swim. No one tried to swim. No one came back wet. So it's when I realized, they're sort of running, but mostly they're hiding. And so like, there was something about that for me that just felt so insidious. And that's why, as the movie continued to progress, and later they're kind of called to it. I'm like, why didn't they try harder? But so, the women were just like, these guys aren't going to help us. And, I guess we're just going to have this moment together. And it kind of was almost a touching moment with all the women sitting back. And I can't remember if any of them even ate anything, but
they did. They ate the
they
phone.
tried to talk to her and be like, okay, let's this doesn't have to happen. And there was a moment of like camaraderie, but that woman was just so dead inside. She was already done.
Yeah.
And so, this sweet moment was like the juxtaposition of like the sweet, tender moment of these women together. And then this completely blank woman, like, no, this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to happen.
But I think it also goes back to the whole cult aspect, or the whole whatever they were indoctrinated to do. But that's also why, and again, part of me thinks in my head that everybody that had a dish knew what that dish was.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a sous chef, but they didn't actually know the outcome of what that other person's final dish was. Until the very end. See, I go back and forth on that, because every time I watch it, I'm like,
because if you think about it, well, during that scene, so there's 2 points I make, but to your point, John Paul, that sous chef said the dying holds the concept together. So they all knew that everybody's going to die. They knew that the guy was going to shoot himself in the mess, because think about it, they put down that plastic, they pulled those plastic curtains.
You're right.
They knew that they were going to let these men run and they weren't going to go anywhere. So I feel like they actually did know, like, what the things that they didn't know were the changes to the menu that happened during the course. But the other thing, though, like, back to your point, Traci, like, so the men all left, none of them offered to help. I think one of them said, I'll send help. But when you notice, they all run in different directions. And when one of them was running next to the other, he was like, go. So it was literally every man for himself, no pun intended.
Nobody worked together.
Nothing. But the women, they backed each other's play. So, first, and they even did try to console that sous chef. So, the critic compliments her on the food, and the sous chef starts breaking down, and the other women are like, no, this is really great. And, one's like, I usually don't like foam, but this, and they all try to, make her feel better. And then when the critic's like, maybe you should open your own restaurant, of course, you would have to not die. And, the other one were like, yes, totally your own restaurant. Like, so they all band together.
Mm-hmm.
And there even wasn't any weirdness, like, in the sense, like, a lot of movies and just social media and media itself always likes to pit women against each other, even to the point where you see, if there's a guy cheating on his wife or his partner with another woman, you see the woman go after the other woman, which I always thought is the most ridiculous shit in the world.
Right.
This could be any woman, really doesn't matter. Go after the dude that's doing the cheating. But at any rate, but you just have a scene where, like, all that happens with that wife is like, my husband, and Margot's like, yes, and that was it. There was no I hate you. You even have the scene where Margot hands a purse over to Judith Light. I forgot her character's name. I just know it's Judith Light because I grew up watching sitcoms in the 80s.
And in the end, it was Judith. It was
that told her to escape.
Told her to go.
Gave her blessing, as it were, about, yes, get out of here. That's that,
Yeah.
So I just thought it kind of highlighted, just every man for herself, all women banding together, which, is not necessarily true in reality always, but more often than not, you see it.
It's nice. It was nice to see. Like, I think I personally, as a viewer, needed that moment because there was just so much selfishness, so much like that. I kind of needed that moment for any like humanity to have remained in these characters, because you're watching them all really get stripped down and pulled apart and torn, like emotionally, their relationships, their friendships, And I just needed that. I mean, I'm not even sure I would call it a moment of tenderness, but maybe, but to see them kind of come together, you know, first of all, for a woman who was clearly a victim of what, we're not sure. They don't even care. They don't, you know, they don't even care because he admitted it, which was wild. And she, you know, she talked about it. And so to see them come together, even just for a few minutes, that to me was like the soul and the heart of that movie. For just a few minutes, these people who are apparently, a lot of them are really selfish assholes, you know, they did try to work together, unlike the guys.
Yeah. Though I also like the fact that they gave the one guy that hid in the chicken coop that made it that little egg, and the way that actor was like just in the chicken
He just
coop, like just,
hiding. I mean, yeah. And
it's a nice moment of levity.
that, you know, that's another thing. It was a dark comedy. You know, yes, there are certainly horrific moments and terrifying moments or whatever, but they splashed it with a little bit of comedy, just enough, like they peppered it, just like the perfect garnish, with a little bit of levity, because it was a heavy movie. It's heavy, but yeah, so yeah, it was hilarious, and every so often you get, you know, some genuinely amusing moments, and it helped kind of break up some of that grim film.
Well, I like how you point out that everybody was getting teared down because you're right. I'm like, and it started with the tacos. Like, you know, you have Tyler being called out for his taking the pictures, and you have the finance bros with the, you know, creative bookkeeping and
Uh-huh.
invoicing. You have the actor.
Well, okay, so this is what gets me. Upon subsequent watches of the film, I start trying to justify, you know, who deserves to live, who deserves not to live, which is totally fucked up. Like, it's ridiculous.
I'm so glad you brought this up because I was going to play a quick game with us
Yeah,
and
okay,
say
well,
who deserves to live and who deserves to die, not counting.
Margot.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um,
So
I mean, I don't think any of them necessarily deserve to die, to be fair.
Certainly not that way.
No, definitely not. But like, one of the things that really upset me is his mother, who is shit-faced the entire film. And you know, she actually gets shittier faced as the movie goes on. Like, she starts out drunk and then just gets more and more drunk. And like, there is absolutely nothing from the very first moment you see her to make you think she is not already just a broken woman. She's just broken. And that bothers me a lot. Of course, you know, there's reasons to justify, especially from his perspective, any of it. But his mother also was a victim of domestic violence, and I guess because he didn't consider her to protect him, that was enough.
Yeah.
That was enough.
I mean, admittedly, it's hard to see somebody else's victimhood when you're being victimized for sure. But this was a grown ass man who could have gone to therapy and had a little understanding and probably, and basically had his own cult. So he probably had an idea of what his dad did to her to get her to
Right.
be, you know, not a protective mother and just, you know, yeah. So I agree.
And like,
It's,
Judith, what the hell did Judith Light do?
that's my person.
yeah.
When I was gonna play this little game, I was gonna say, all right, well, my person's Judith
Well, let's
Light's
play the
character,
game.
and and I feel is the most innocent in all of this because she's the spouse of a husband who's clearly cheated on her several times.
And possibly might have abused their daughter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who
Eh,
I found out upon looking into it at some point, and I haven't caught it, their daughter died.
Oh, I didn't know
yes.
that.
So their daughter is dead. And so I have to again rewatch it. I was doing some research before we started chatting, but yeah, so their daughter's dead, and there's no description why, but man, looking not good.
See, I caught that. I caught that she's kind of still grieving or somewhere in the process, that it's been like, I would say 6 months to a year. Maybe a little bit more, maybe not. But again, that's why I thought, when you really look character out of all of them, and then my second might be the assistant to Leguizamo's character, because
That's
she
Amy
really,
Carrero. She's a
yeah,
voice actress who is also on Critical Role and a couple other play by live play D&D games. And when I saw her in this movie, I was super stoked. I had no idea what the movie was about. I'm like, Amy got this amazing job. This is so great for her. And I just watched the movie go on. I'm like, oh no.
oh no.
Poor Amy.
But again, I think she was probably the second closest person that I would be like, I'm gonna spare this person.
But then, like, yeah, no, but I'm the same way.
But then we roll down a hill of like, okay, we're playing God now. We're
Well,
playing
also,
exactly the opposite of what the chef did.
the critic's assistant, or the critic's plus one, he really was just like a sycophant. Like,
Yeah.
his worst crime is his worst crime is just being like, oh yeah, you're right, yeah, you're right.
I think that's though a pretty bad crime.
I mean, is it worth s'moresing over? Like,
I mean, it's
No.
totally worth s'moresing over if you love s'mores.
I mean, it's annoying.
I'm a heavy set guy. I love s'mores.
but yeah, so like I catch myself playing that game.
Yeah.
I think Angela, nope, Angela. I keep thinking, who's the boss?
Yeah, no, I did the same thing.
Judith's character, Anne.
Anne is her name, yes.
I think of all of them, I am the most upset for her.
Yeah.
I'm the most upset.
It seemed like her worst crime is that she didn't really appreciate the food being put in front of her enough.
Right.
Because she's grieving. Again.
Well, yeah, that adds a different level to it, doesn't it?
She was
like,
grieving. She's being forced to be
mm-hmm.
at somewhere she doesn't want to be with
mm-hmm.
a piece of shit of a man that she's married to,
mm-hmm.
because, and then clearly this girl who kind of reminds them of her daughter, which makes
mm-hmm.
it even harder for her to even like eat anything. I mean, I totally kind of relate with like, fuck.
Well, I don't mean at that one setting, like, you know, because
Yeah.
that was the chef's whole thing. Like when he went up to him, like,
Yeah.
why? And he's like, name one meal you've had in the 12 times you've been here, you know? And which she was sort of able to. She wasn't quite accurate, but she said cod and it was haddock or something like that,
Something
you know.
like that, yeah.
But, you know, I mean, like, but from the perspective of being somebody who's grieving, who's just probably going through the motions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
her mind is not. Yeah.
So yeah.
Angela gets to live.
Back to the assistant. I loved. It's wrong, and it's just
come on, laugh it. Come on, say it, Jenny. I know you're gonna say it.
Justification for her death, like, you know, when John Leguizamo was like, "But why her?" And he was like, "Where'd you go to college?" And she was like, "Brown." And he goes, "Student loans." And she goes, "No." He's like, "You're dying." I'm sorry, you're dying. Like literally, that's what he's.
I did laugh. I did laugh
so hard
in the theater, really hard, because when I saw it, it was a Tuesday evening, and nobody but my wife and I were in the theater.
Oh boy.
And it was like a week after the movie came out, because it didn't do well. I admittedly know the movie didn't do well, but we went on a Tuesday because it was $5 night, and I had $10 off anyway, so it was nice. Like, even free, which was even more entertaining. But I mean, I just laughed because I just thought, man, we're living in a world with all these people with student loans and all this shit. And then they go, well, you didn't have any student loans. I was like, wow.
You gotta die.
That's you're gonna die. Wow. So
and then so like you're in your brain, you're like, I don't think that's worthy of dying. Okay, but is being a shitty actor worth dying? Because that was his biggest crime.
Oh, I mean,
he didn't like his movie. Like, that was the biggest crime of John Leguizamo.
That was the biggest crime of
Chef is concerned.
I mean, it turned out he was a shitty person, but really,
he was a shitty actor
he was there
too.
To die was because he was in a movie that was shit.
Yeah.
But that monologue also makes me laugh, because
you wasted my day off.
You wasted my day.
On one day off in months.
I mean, again, like you said, they sprinkle in levity in this movie, which is another reason why I genuinely enjoy it. I've seen it 10 times. I'm gonna see it again because I enjoy it. Maybe I'm just messed up, but
Well, and then there's one of the finance bros. Like, you told me it was my birthday. Yeah, it was funny an hour ago. Like, not so funny now.
Yeah.
Shit.
Finance bros, they can die. I don't care about that. They can go. Cheating
I
husband,
liked
he
watching
can
them get
go.
tortured. The whole thing where like, what is this? Tortillas. Delicioso.
Yes. Shit.
That
Like, I
actress
just
was
love.
so good. Oh my God, I love
Again,
her.
again, she is a phenomenal actress. She was awesome in The Whale, awesome in this. She had a good like year. If you look at the credits and everything she did this past year, I'm like, good. You
Yeah, she
deserve
got
everything.
a nomination,
She
didn't she?
she got nominated for The Whale, but not for
Okay.
this, unfortunately. Nothing got nominated for this. I'm still bitter about this because, like I said, I it
It's
was just
phenomenal.
marketed wrong. That is the biggest problem with this movie, is it was marketed wrong. But I'm also not sure how you market this movie to people
Yeah.
without saying, "Hey, it's the menu."
Well, and that was part of. So I'm also really into the Jordan Peele movies.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing about a lot of his films, because they tend to have horror genre like trailers, and then they don't do as well as they're expected, I guess, because they're not your traditional horror films. They're like horror plus, which
Well, yeah,
I
he sprinkled in horror because he loves horror.
right.
Like I've listened to him talk in many podcasts about the love of his horror and how deep down, and how I would love him to remake Nightmare on Elm Street because he's got a phenomenal idea.
Oh my
Um,
lord.
it would be
I would
amazing.
pay get
Yeah,
I would pay that
yeah,
money.
same,
I
same.
would pay that money.
Um, and even the last one that people were like, nope, and I'm like, my first viewing of Nope, I was like, and then I've now seen it like 4 or 5 times, and every time I watch it, I get more out of it, and I love it that much more. And I think that's what he did when he did his Twilight Zone, which I was mad it got canceled after 2 seasons. Some of the greatest stories and that's what his movies are. They aren't horror; they're Twilight Zone episodes that have horror elements, and that's what the Twilight Zone did. So with this movie, yeah, it could be like you said, Black Mirror, Twilight Zone, whatever. But I thought it was just something more. And
Mhm.
that's like I told you, it was the whole kind of like because we just got out of, I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna say his name, don't get mad, Jenny. A terrible, terrible, terrible man by the name of Trump. And living in a world where we got crapped on for so long, and the rich got away with so much crap
And
that
still
we're
are.
now, and still are, but we're now also getting movies like this, and sadly enough, movies like Triangle Sadness, where they're turning the rich on. People are finally going, maybe it shouldn't be that great to have the rich have everything and sit around and just go, ooh, smell the foam. This is the most delicious dish in the world. No, it's not. Give me something good to eat. I mean, again, I love food. I love making new things. One of my favorite chefs, and I loosely say chefs, is Sam the Cooking Guy on YouTube. The man makes food that is just, when you look at it, you're like, oh my God, that looks amazing. It looks gorgeous, all the stuff. It's very simple, but tastes delicious. And it's very satisfying. He also loves going and like getting restaurants and duping their stuff. Like his most recent video he made was he made chicken nuggets. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna make chicken nuggets for my wife in the next couple of weeks. Because again, it's stuff like that I'm just like, that's really what food should be. Or if you want to go and experience a Michelin star restaurant, I don't want to go home hungry. Like I said, I'm a heavy set man. If I'm going to go, I'd rather go
I
to a
paid twelve
tasting.
fifty for a meal. I better not be hungry.
I better
Right. Right.
or or when you go to restaurant week and you have a terrible burger.
That was
Talking to me,
sad. I was very sad
you
about that.
Liberty Tavern Inn pal.
They
It's
had
just,
good
I don't
pretzel
know.
bread though.
They did have pretzel bread. You're right, but the burger was
But yeah,
terrible.
don't get a burger at Liberty
Don't get a
Tavern.
burger. Um,
Might as well just feed
but
yourself sawdust. Um,
exactly. But again,
This is what we're all really here for. So talking about our
yes.
favorite burgers.
there we go. But it's just, I like that people are starting to open their eyes about a lot of things. And that's another reason why I enjoy this movie, is you really can open your eyes about a lot of things. It's got so many cool different kinds of layers, and you can see different things upon different kinds of viewings of it. And just, I don't know, that I really, I do, I love this movie. I was like I said, after I watched it, I told kind of everybody. I mean, I was like, Jenny, I just saw the menu, go see it. And
Watch
you're
money,
like,
watch money. I'm like, I will.
and I was like, because I bugged you, because I'm like, you're gonna like it because it's so twisted and weird, but it's like, yeah, but I saw the preview and I'm like, no, it's not cannibalism. That's
Yeah,
and that's a and you're like, okay, fine. And it's not also like what you think. It's different, and
it was amazing. Yeah,
yeah.
good recommendation.
So those are my final thoughts. I'll let everybody else talk. I'll shut up.
Oh, I just had a couple additional thoughts. Like, so another fun thing. So when you think about it, Margot could have ran. Like, she did not need to come back to the restaurant. She did not need to try to find a way to save everybody. She had, I mean, it was just a smokehouse key. She really couldn't do anything with that necessarily, but she could have fucking grabbed that
Both
one little
it.
rowboat. She could have, done anything besides just radio for help and come back.
Yep.
So, I mean, I find that interesting too. Like, they kind of brush over that. And I
Yeah.
think, and I think that's also why probably another reason why Judith Light's character, I mean, in addition to her looking like her dead daughter, was be like, run, girl, go. But the overwhelming thing that, like, these people did not really try to save themselves.
Mm-mm.
They really didn't at all. Like, and even in the end, it's like they decided they deserve to die too. Like, like
Yeah.
they're putting this stuff on, and they're not trying to fight it at all.
No,
And at no point do they try to overwhelm the staff.
they
And
don't
the
even
stuff
stand up.
they even say back, "We love you, chef," like along with the rest of the staff, and then they go up in flames. And I know for a fact I'd be very upset that I wouldn't at least be able to eat a s'more before I burn it.
Right. Like, give me
So
one
I'd
of
be
those, like,
fighting for that at least.
dunk it and eat it or something.
I
Something.
think the assistant did lick the chocolate, so she had that much. But yeah, but no, they let themselves die. They didn't fight
They
it,
didn't
and
even stand up, and that really, really messed with me. Like, not even one of them stood up from their seat as they are
no,
being torched.
at all. They just do.
And what blows my mind is the one person who actually tried to leave, like genuinely tried, was the oldest guy there.
Mhm.
And yeah, he paid for it, but all those young douchey bros.
Well, one guy did make a run. Remember the one dude ran when they were doing the fallen angel? One of the finance bros ran for the door.
Oh,
And
okay.
they knocked him down. But still, he didn't fight hard once he hit the ground. Like, and I think they just basically tripped him.
And none of
He was
them tried
done.
to help him either. Like,
No.
mm, mm, mm. I feel some kind of way about it.
I think it just goes back to the rich just care about themselves and they don't care about anybody but themselves.
Well,
But
then they kept expecting somebody else to come and save them. They thought they could
exactly.
name drop. They thought they could money drop. They thought, they were relying on the one person who was not the wealthy person to come, save them while she was running about, of themselves. They really were incapable, even when the men had a chance to run, of finding a way to take care of themselves.
Yet again, this is another instance where they're not necessarily participating in their lives. They're just watching it. And I think that is one of the end feelings that you get. They're just, even to the end, they're just watching their lives, as all these terrible things are happening around them, to their own death. It's just, ugh, it's haunting. It's haunting.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, so Tyler, like we haven't really talked about him much. And I find him a terribly confusing character, to be honest. Because like at first he's almost kind of sweet and you almost kind of feel from him, here's a guy who's such a fanboy that he just wants to be noticed by this chef, right? And then it gets dark, like, it turns out, that it's not that he just wants to be noticed. I think he wants to become superior to them without actually having to do the work.
Yeah.
So like, he's always interrupting. He always knows the answer, I can taste the bergamot.
Yes,
and then
the
it comes
bergamot.
out then it comes out that he literally signed up this woman
For death.
it took her to the slaughter, to die. And I love that she jumped straight across the table and just punched him in the face. Like didn't even
Right
go
in the
around,
face.
straight across, and boom, it was beautiful. And I think that was like kind of what they were trying to show when Chef finally is like, all right, okay, you think you know this stuff. You keep thinking that you're superior, that you're on par with us. Show me what you got. And he
Was that like
exasperated.
the cringiest thing you've seen in that movie? Like, oh God. Just ugh. And then the
Complete
title
humiliation.
card for his shitty food. Jesus.
Tyler's bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah. Practically inedible.
Yeah.
Undercooked
Amazing knife
lamb.
skills.
Jesus. Like, honestly, watching and again with a few whispered words, he killed himself.
Mm-hmm.
He was so desperate for that man's approval that it took a couple of words of disappointment or whatever, and that was it. He's like, I'm done. He didn't, of all the things he kept saying he wanted to be part of this, he wanted to be part of this, he didn't even stay to the end, to the last course.
Yeah, he didn't even get to be part of the end menu. Yeah, so but it was just a terribly complex and interesting. And I, the more I watch it, the more there seems to be more layers into it. Is it also like armchair quarterback kind of stuff, the way we idolize famous people, like rich people, like is that all supposed to be playing into it? I don't know, but there's a lot. But I read that there was an alternate ending where instead of him hanging himself, Chef gave him an opportunity to be one of them, and he was washing dishes the entire time after that.
Oh my,
That's
why?
amazing.
They all know the place is going up in fire. Why are they making them
why even wash the dishes?
Oh Lord.
Because that is also a degrading job.
Mm.
In a restaurant. That's lower than a busboy.
That's my job.
I mean, that's where I started.
I'm like, but it was my favorite job in the restaurant because everybody left you
don't have
fuck
to talk
alone.
to anybody.
Yeah. Just wash the dishes. It was fine. But
that's wild. That's wild.
So,
and what kills me about him is that even when horrific things start happening, when the husband's finger gets chopped off, he goes, oh, didn't see that coming, and continues to eat. Like he's deeply, fundamentally not present. And
well, the fact that he takes photographs anyway, like the man knew that they were all going to die. What is he taking a photograph for? Sorry, go ahead.
Was he uploading them someplace, like putting them on the Insta? Hey,
but there was no cell reception, they said, so I don't think so.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's also messed up. I just assumed that he was like shooting it over to his Insta so that he could, have that prestige. And you're right. They said there's no cell reception.
He's a douche.
So he's just taking pictures like he's not going to die.
Just
maybe he thought in the end Chef would think he was so special that he should live. I don't know.
Wild. He didn't even stay for the last course. Damn. So he missed 2 courses, technically.
Yeah.
Well, I honestly was kind of glad. I didn't like watching him. I don't like watching people get like shamed. So watching him cook that deeply, deeply bad meal was just really unfortunate. It was hard to watch. It was really hard to watch. And I was talking to Joe about it. I'm like, it's hard to swallow, kind of like that meal was probably like hard to swallow. But like just watching him, this is the only thing that gets to him in this whole thing. He gets mad that Margot is being, not appropriate or whatever. But the only thing that actually, like, people are getting murdered, people are getting chopped up, people blow their brains out, and he is not phased. But being put on the spot and having his idol tell him that he wasn't good enough is the only thing that got through to him in the whole movie. Not even knowing that he was going to die, they were all going to die, the girl he invited was going to die, did not faze him at all. But having that man talk down to him was the only thing. That's wild. It's wild.
It is wild. Yeah. It's the power of a parent figure, if you will. I don't know. Like, yeah, it's intense. It's like, I don't
I
know.
noticed him in the wrong way.
That's why I don't like attention, because
One of us. One of us.
Not all attention is good attention.
it's a quick lesson to learn. Some people don't learn it. Some of us learn it way quickly and never unlearn it. But yeah, so I just, yeah, there's so much going on in this movie. I can't recommend it enough. But it's also, in a lot of ways, it's a hard watch, because there is that humiliation. There is that, just, you start questioning yourself. Like, how many times have you watched something terrible? And like, now I just feel like we're so inundated, sorry, with disasters and horrible shit. And, I mean, like, there's still a war going on in Ukraine. Nothing. This Turkey's still, in the middle of hell right now with its war going on and people dying there left and right. COVID's still a thing. Yeah, it's not gone. All the shit that rolled down from when Trump was in charge is still happening. The crap that they're doing against the LGBTQI community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, it never ends. It hasn't ended. It's just on our screens all the time, all the time. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm still watching while I'm eating my dinner. You know what I mean? And,
Yep.
it just kind of, in a way, puts a focus on that, where you realize that you too have now become dead to it.
Mm-hmm.
I would still fight rather than be burnt alive, though, personally, because that seems
Exactly.
like a very terrible way to go. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not how I want to die.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, like, I if I can't eat the chocolate, no, that's a no,
Right.
no
Get
bueno.
it.
Mm-mm,
Get a
not
bite.
happening.
Just a couple little bites.
Yeah.
Actually,
And
I had to take that.
I think if I had to sum up my big takeaway, and I've said it several times, so I apologize for repeating myself,
No, it's
but
fine.
it's being an active participant in your life, like being present in your life. And I am one of those people that posts a lot of pictures on Instagram. I'm one of those people. Um, but at some point, it's like, am I taking a picture instead of being present? Am I trying to share this with other people instead of being present in this moment? And, am I seeing the things that are happening around me and doing something about them? Or am I just distracting myself with doom scrolling or whatever your vice of choice is? And so, like, my biggest takeaway is from this movie is, being aware and present in your life. And, you know, yeah, just trying to be more, cognizant of living in the life that you're in, instead of trying to either live up to other people's expectations or expectations you make for yourself.
Mhm. Oh, and ask questions. Like, that was
Yeah.
my other thing. Ask
Yes.
questions. You
Yeah.
know, don't just sit there and wonder what's going on. Find out.
Mhm.
John Paul?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how to follow that, but besides really just, I mean, I totally agree with you. You're right. Be present. That's the most important thing. I mean, especially in the last couple of years. I mean, have we really been present? Have we just kind of lived in limbo? I mean, COVID definitely, a couple of years just disappeared, and you don't know where those years went. It's scary.
It's like a
Um,
bad dream.
exactly. I mean, I brought this up to my wife the other night. I'm like, it it still blows my mind that something that happened everywhere. It isn't like it just happened in the US. It isn't like
Right.
it just happened overseas. It happened all over the world. And I don't feel that we've really learned anything. And
It
that
could have
scares
been
me.
such a unifying
Exactly. It could have
moment.
been that's that, and that scares the living shit out of me, because the fact that we really haven't learned a lot, and uh, it's scary. And yes, there has been some interesting medical advancements from it and different things like in that regard, and that's great. And technology moved forward in certain sectors, in terms of even like, I mean, my job went fully remote, you know. Um, Being on Zoom became a regular thing for us, and we kept in touch with friends and family that way, and that's great and everything. But you're right, being present is the most important thing. One of the things that I you know really I liked, and this may sound weird, was when we heard stories of like people applauding, all of the health workers and all of that, or hearing stories about like, and I know we did this for Jenny, but like, you did a caravan for your friend for their birthday or for holidays or whatever, and that brought up people's spirits and stuff like that. I mean,
And
you
seeing
don't hear
people
those kind of
waving
things.
from across apartment complexes at each other and
Right, exactly.
playing their instruments out of their balconies.
Yeah, and again, I know we're not like, we're allowed out now. That's wonderful. But we also should still like learn that it's not gone away. It
Oh,
probably will never go
100%.
away. It'll keep mutating into different things. And we should still be cautious of different things and be cognizant of our surroundings, ourselves, our friends, who, how we talk to, how we speak. I mean, that kind of stuff. I mean, like you said, I mean, the shit that's happening in Florida with and the rights that are being taken away from people. And I say people, I mean, women and the LGBTQ plus as well. But I mean, just people are people, and that's what kills me. When you're teaching kids hate, it's just, why? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I know I'm getting off topic.
No,
So
this shit
so I'll go
got
back
deep.
to this. I'll go back to this movie. Um, I mean, it's going to open your eyes. It's worth seeing. It's not necessarily a horror movie. It's not just a comedy. It's just something more, and it's something that needs to be seen and kind of experience. And experience means not just one time, maybe several times. Maybe you watch it like 3 or 4 times and you still hate it. But I would love to hear why you hate it.
Yes.
Or why you love it. I mean, you guys can comment in our Facebook about it as well, because that's what that's what these discussions really are about, and talking to our friends and on these podcasts is just like, I love hearing about movies. Like, I know you brought it up, like you were in the art field of the whole thing of like, oh, they dissected like film and all that. I'm with you. I'm not about that. I mean, I know I might have told this story, and I'm going to say it again just because I love this story. This happened in my life. In 10th grade, had an art teacher, and she said the final, from the day one, she said the final is going to be, what is art?
God, that's harsh.
Okay. She said, what is art? And last day of class, people start, and they get their notepads and they start writing an essay. I went to the back. I grabbed crayons. I melted it on a piece of plate. And then I set it on her desk and left. She gave me an A plus.
Nice. Nice.
I
I love
mean,
that.
again, to me, that's art.
Mm.
It's just a weird little thing that I did for you. One, I got to play with fire, which I love, and wax, which I love to play with. So I just kind of just, but people like were like, well, he's gonna flunk. And they were so
Wait,
surprised.
I didn't know you could do that.
Exactly. They're
was
like,
an
what?
option?
You can do that? I could have just drawn something for her. Yes. She just said, what is art? She didn't say you had to write a long essay. Because again,
Gone up and done a monologue from Shakespeare, right?
we learned
Yes.
all kinds of things in that class, not just like how to sculpt and how to paint and how to do whatever. And yes, we learned some history of art or whatever. But again, what is art? It's a subjective thing.
And it's like it kind of like the menu. There's one person that's like, oh, I want a fucking cheeseburger. I came here to eat food. When all the rest of the people were like, oh, I'm going to write my essay about what art is because everybody else is doing that.
Exactly.
It might save your life. Thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And frankly, when she says, can I have a to-go bag?
Oh, that was so great. That was
genius.
Because
she still didn't know she was okay.
Yeah. And then she just, the way she ate it too was just so great.
Oh,
so it's streaming on HBO Max.
Yeah.
So if people want to see it.
I think it's supposed to hit Netflix soon too.
And I think it's also on Hulu. So it's out there. It's worth seeing.
Watch it. Probably twice. Watch it
at least twice. And find out if he says Waterloo, Iowa, and then Bratislava, and just call me out if I made it up, because
now I have to know.
I'm a special person. I'm just not going to lie about that. I am art.
Feel free, comment anything you want about us.
Yeah. Yep. Reach out. You got a movie, a show? We don't care. We've done TV shows, a cartoon episode, any of it, and you want to join us. We're always happy to have guests. We also are happy to have the guests we've had already come back. We enjoy repeat visitors.
We do.
I guess we're our own sort of whores, I guess.
Best kind.
I mean,
but yeah, so with that, thanks for watching. I'm Jenny, joined my co-host John Paul and our guest host Tracy. This has been What the Fuck Did I Just Watch?
You have been listening to
What the Fuck Did I Just Watch? You can find us on Facebook and on YouTube at WTF Did I Just Watch? Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll join us again soon.